Good morning students. Today is lecture 24 under module 8. As you know, we are discussing microfiltration. So, today we will discuss the fouling mechanism in microfiltration, how to control fouling, as well as we will learn also different models for microfiltration fouling and few applications of microfiltration in general we will discuss, though there are several applications are there. As you know, fouling in any membrane process, whether it is microfiltration, ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis. So, fouling means actually it is the accumulation of various solutes that are intended to be either retained on the surface of the membrane or pass through the membrane into the permeate site. Now, while passing, some of these solutes will be retained inside the pores of the membrane. So, due to different interactions like charge based interactions, some affinity based interactions of the solutes along with the membrane pore wall. Now, these solutes may include various suspended materials. There may be microorganisms like here bacteria, viruses. So, there may be inorganic particles either on the surface of the membrane or inside the pores of the membranes. So, development of fouling is a consequence of a multi-step process, or you can call it as a multi-stage process. So, the essential step in the fouling and the way how fouling begins actually with the adhesion of the fouling agents to the membrane surface. So, we can call it some form of adsorption also. So, basically we can divide fouling into two categories, one is external fouling and another is called internal fouling. Now, let us have a close look at this particular picture. So, this is proposed by University of Edinburgh School of Engineering, where they studied the harvesting of microalgae from the water. Basically, algae was removed using microfiltration after they are mature in the broth. So, this is your membrane, right, and the green particles are the cake or gel layer deposition. So, initially before the gel formation or cake formation takes place, what happens is that, so solutes will start interacting with the membrane surface, okay, by virtue of their charge based interaction, okay, or hydrophilicity or hydrophobicity, whatever may be the case, right, and they will start depositing on a monolayer. So, initially there will be, if this is a membrane surface, so there will be a monolayer deposition of the solutes, okay. So, slowly as your time progresses, okay, you are increasing your delta P also, right. So, more and more of solutes will get deposited. Now, a time will come at a certain pressure, what will happen? Now, these depositions will form a gel layer structure, okay. So, we can call gel, or many people call it cake, so it is fine. So, anything you can call, does not matter. Okay, so, it is very soft, that is why it is called gel. So, many books it is written cake. So, gel or cake, whatever may be the case. Once it is formed, then what will happen? The resistance, this layer is providing a huge resistance. So, we can call it as a gel layer resistance or a cake layer resistance. Okay, so, this resistance will be much more than the resistance which is offered by the membrane, which is, you know, the clean membrane, basically the RM, okay, the resistance due to the membrane thickness. So, now what will happen? Your permeation, the flux decline profile, okay, will be very severe, and your permeate flux, whatever you wanted to achieve, you will not achieve it, right. So, you can see then in this particular figure, adsorption, pore blocking, all these things are happening. So, it depends upon what type of molecules you are processing, or maybe what are the components that is present in the feed. Now, you remember one thing, that it may happen that a particular feed stream may contain so many different types of solutes, right. So, out of that one solute may be of your interest. Now, let us say in this particular example, we want to harvest algae, that means we want to retain algae on the surface of the microfiltration membrane, and apart from algae there are so many other components also. Now, we have to choose a microfiltration membrane in such a that it will retain the microalgae, thereby passing or allowing the water and other low molecular weights compounds to the permeate site. So, this is how actually it happens. So, during this passage of lower molecular salts or even water, the components which are smaller in size than the pore of the membrane will definitely pass through the membrane pores. So, and they will try to get attached themselves inside the pores, or even sometimes yesterday last class as you understand that if you remember, so we talked about a breathing mechanism, okay. So, let us say this is a pore, two particles are forming a breeze, or three particles are forming a breeze, thereby blocking the pore mouth, right. So, the entire if you see the cross section, so it looks something like this, okay. However, this and these portions are still available for solute transport. Now but the reason that why we are discussing about this bridging or pore blocking mechanism is that, so even if the entire pore is not completely blocked, however, the pore size or the mouth of the pore has become reduced. So, obviously, there will be more deposition on the surface of the membrane and the flux decline profile will be very steep. So, let us now understand the external fouling. So, external fouling is also known as concentration polarization, right. So, which essentially means that the deposition of solutes on the membrane surface whose concentration is much higher compared to that in the bulk feed, right. So, the concentration polarization is the consequence of membrane separation and hence cannot be prevented completely. So, in no case you can get rid of concentration polarization, right. The reason is that when the separation is happening, there are solutes which are getting either transmitted to the polymer size or the solutes that are getting retained on the surface of the membrane. So, in any case, whether a membrane is hydrophilic or hydrophobic or whatever the environment feed properties or the solute properties, there will be some deposition of the solutes on the surface of the membrane. You cannot get rid of it. What is our intention is that we need to minimize it. So, due to concentration polarization, the permeate flux decreases, thereby influencing the overall economy of the process. In industrial parlance, we always wish that we have we should achieve a higher permeate flux, so that you get a proper rejection or retention. So, the interaction between the retained components and the membrane leads to pore blocking of the membrane and subsequent fouling. Initially, when this pore blocking is happening, it may block the mouth of the pore, slowly they may get inside smaller particles inside the pore, and as I told you earlier in one of the class, so the constriction of the pores happens. Suppose this is the pore, there may be a constriction, again it may might open to the other side. However, the particle which is smaller than the pore diameter, this is pore diameter, will pass through it, right. Let us say it comes in inside the pore. However, due to this particular constriction, it gets deposited on this surface of the constriction or the mouth of the constriction. So, this is some sort of pore blocking mechanism. We can call it internal pore blocking mechanism, right. So, concentration polarization in microfiltration is different than that of the ultrafiltration, because you remember ultrafiltration is an asymmetric membrane. So, there are two membranes basically, okay, one support membrane and then there is a very thin top layer. So, obviously, the pore size of this membrane and pore size of this membrane are different. So, once and it is quite clear, we know that the pore sizes here, okay, of the skin layer is obviously very or much smaller than the porous support. So, the mechanism is different. The deposited particles on the membrane surface are brought back to the bulk solution by various means. Now, this is one of the we have already discussed this in ultrafiltration. How do you reduce concentration polarization or subsequent flux, or they are interrelated. So, one thing, how to reducing CP or concentration polarization, enhancing permeate flux JV, okay, or controlling or minimizing your fouling, right. So, all these are related. So, all these are related. So, when you are trying to reduce concentration polarization, you are obviously addressing the enhancement of the permeate flux also, and thereby minimizing or controlling fouling. So, when there are various techniques we have discussed, shear induced diffusion, shear induced erosion, particle interactions, inertial lift mechanism, there are other techniques also. So, when adsorption and desorption takes place on the membrane surface, the hydraulic permeability and solute transmission characteristics are altered due to increase in the effective membrane thickness, blockage of pore entrance and constriction of pore entrance. So, now let us understand internal fouling. Internal fouling comes into picture after the concentration polarization layer has developed due to the pore blocking mechanism, right. Because I already told you that due to bridging, the pore is getting blocked, or due to a large size of the particles are sitting on the mouth of the small size pore. So, the pore mouth is getting blocked, and some of the pore mouths are not completely blocked. So, some small lower or smaller or lower molecular weight components will try to pass through that particular space inside the pores. Now, and they, due to constriction, they will get retained. So, interaction between the retained components and membrane surface occurs due to concentration polarization. Now, these interactions often result in pore blocking of the membrane, which can then lead to irreversible fouling of the membrane. Now, fouling is two types, right. So, we can also classify them exterior interior, that is what we are are discussing, we can also tell them reversible and irreversible fouling. Now, reversible fouling is one in which we can reverse the fouling, that means we can completely remove the fouling by some mechanism, by black flushing, by some acid or alkali treatment. And irreversible fouling is very strong bounding of the solute molecules, most probably due to the charge based interaction, right. And so that even if you use acid alkali treatment, some buffer solution, backwashing with a higher cross flow velocity, then also they are not complete, you are not completely getting them out of the membrane pores. So, that is irreversible fouling. So, in constant TMP filtration, fouling results in sharp reduction. So, when we are going for a constant transmembrane pressure filtration, so the permeate flux decline is very sharp, and in constant flux filtration, where you are maintaining the flux at the same level, so fouling results in increase in TMP and change in solute transmission. To maintain the constant flux, you have to increase the transmembrane pressure. So, in that, since you are increasing the transmembrane pressure, the change in solute transmission also occurring. So, fouling is generally caused by deposition of organic, inorganic and biological matters. Inorganic fouling is caused by various micromolecules and ions. Organic fouling resulted due to undissolved organic matter such as starch, proteins, humic acids, etc. Biological fouling is the fouling which is caused by microorganisms like bacteria, algae and virus present in the feed stream. So, microfiltration has the huge application in biotechnological and biopharmaceutical industry, wherein they remove these microorganisms like bacteria, viruses, molds, algae, all these things from the process water, so as to make it sterilized. So, there are various factors which affect the biological fouling. So, there are temperature, pH, oxygen content, available nutrients and different flow conditions. So, let us now understand the theoretical models for the membrane fouling. So, all the models are based on actually resistances. So, the permeate flux of water or water flux across a clean membrane can be given by this following equation, which is J equals to delta P by mu Rm. So, either you are right J, Jv, Jw. So, it is permeate flux basically, where J is the permeate flux, delta P is the transmembrane pressure, mu is the absolute viscosity of water and Rm is the hydraulic resistance of the clean membrane or clean membrane resistance we can call. So, for better understanding of membrane fouling process, various models are proposed. So, fouling models also provide predictive tools for successful scale up or scale down of microfiltration systems. So, the permeate flux for water containing suspended solids will always be lower than that given by equation 1. That means, the clean water flux will always be high, because there are no solutes present in that. When there are solutes present in suspended form or dissolved form, then the flux will decrease, or the amount of the flux whatever you will get will be obviously less than that of the clean water flux or clean membrane flux. Flux decline is a result of the increase of membrane resistance to the permeating flow resulting from membrane fouling or particle deposition on or in the membrane. So, the mechanism of membrane fouling usually include pore blocking, right, concentration polarization and cake formation. So, these are happening simultaneously once you are increasing pressure. So, initially there will be deposition on the surface, okay, slowly deposition amount becomes more, then a gel or cake layer, a cake forms, then gel layer forms, okay. So, and then gradually subsequently they lead to fouling. So, for microfiltration, fouling by concentration polarization may be negligible due to the large size of the particles retained. Thus, permeate flux through the microfiltration unit treating suspensions can be given by modifying the earlier equation. So, you can write instead of Rm we are adding 2 more resistances. Okay. So, you know resistances are always added in series. So, Rm is the clean membrane resistance. So, plus Rp plus Rc. So, what is Rp? Rp is the resistance due to the pore blocking and Rc is the resistance that is arising from the cake formation. So, for microfiltration at a constant TMP, initial permeate flux will mainly depend on Rm, as Rp and Rc are initially 0. So, when it is J naught, so that means initial flux, so it will be only delta P and mu Rm. Okay. So, with the proceeding of microfiltration operation, pore blocking and cake formation will cause Rp and Rc to increase. So, once you start the process, slowly the solids will be built up on the surface of the membrane. So, the resistance due to the pore blocking as well as resistance due to the cake will increase, or their contribution will increase basically, and change the relative significance of Rm, Rp and Rc in equation 2, and the microfiltration process can transform from a membrane resistance limiter to a pore blocking resistance limited or a cake resistance limited process. I hope you understand that when if you look at this earlier equation. So, initially when for the clean water flux, okay, so initially we are starting, so Rm will be predominant, slowly Rp and Rc will come into picture. So, when Rm is actually predominant here, okay, then it is membrane resistance controlled process, that is in at the initial because the initially the membrane will be clean. So, then when the solute deposition starts, slowly pore blocking and RC. So, these two will have more impact on the overall process dynamics. Okay. So, then your membrane process will no more be membrane resistance limited, it may become either pore blocking resistance limited or it can be a cake resistance limited, depending upon whether RP is contributing more or RC is contributing more. So, anyway the permeation flux under this can be written like this. If it is a membrane resistance limited, so it is J naught plus 1 plus J naught KMT. Pore blocking, so it is J naught into exponential of minus KPT, and cake resistance, so J square equal to J naught square divided by 1 plus J naught square KCT. Now, what are Km, Kp, Kc? Now, Km, Kp, Kc are system parameters relating to membrane resistance, pore blocking resistance and cake forming resistance respectively. So, now these equations you can always express in linearized form. So, you can write 1 over j by 1 over j naught plus km by t, you can always plot it, right. So, you plot 1 over j versus 1 over t or t. So, you will get the slope is km and 1 over j naught is the intercept. So, similarly, you can plot ln j versus t, right, here. So, you get kp and j naught from that. Similarly, 1 by j versus t. Okay. So, either you plot 1 by j versus t. So, here we can plot ln j versus t. So, this is just the linearized form will help us to plot the data easily and to find out what is the value of Km and J naught. So, these earlier equations can be used to evaluate the effectiveness of various membrane cleaning methods in removing the different types of fouling. Now, this can be done by fitting these equations to the laboratory experimental data. Whatever the experimental data we are getting in the laboratory will be fitted to these linearized forms, okay, after cleaning the membrane and then comparing the changes in the value of Km, Kp, Kc. That means, what you do basically is that first you get the clean data, then you get one set of experimental data with certain pressures, then clean the membrane, again use it, right, for one set of experiment, again clean it, again use it. So, you get so many different types of data from the laboratory scale experiment, then you fit it and then from this fitting you will get different values of Km, Kp and Kc. So, then you can understand what is the effect of Km, what is the effect of Kc, what is the effect of Kp on the system dynamics or the membrane efficiency also directly. So, a change in the value of Km, Kp, Kc gives an indication of the corresponding type of membrane fouling, whether Rm is dominating, whether Rp is dominating or whether Rc is dominating. Now, this can be find out from the value of Km, Kp and Kc. Now, there are different factors that affects fouling. This we have discussed during ultrafiltration also, but let us just quickly go through again. So, the solute shape and size, hydrophobicity and electrostatic change plays a very important role. Similarly, the membrane pore size, membrane pore shape, its hydrophobicity, its electrostatic charges and functional groups if at all or reactive groups that present on the membrane sometimes also plays a big role. Apart from that, operating parameters such as transmembrane pressure, permeate flux, system hydrodynamics of the module basically, the length of the channel, the diameter and all these things, how many tubes are inside or how many seats are inside, all these things, then concentration, polarization and fouling. Apart from that, fit properties such as solute concentration, pH, salt concentration and other components also plays a important role. Then most importantly, membrane operation history. So, all industries who uses membranes, they always keep a record of the membrane operation history. The performance of the membrane in cross flow microfiltration is strongly influenced by the buildup of a fouling layer that finally may completely plug the porous membrane surface. Especially this is more effective when we are removing proteins or retaining proteins. So, for microfiltration membranes, the pore blocking type of membrane fouling is by far the most predominant. Okay, in most of the solutes it has been seen that pore blocking is the mostly predominant. So, flux enhancement techniques. So, you can have either higher cross flow velocity about 2 to 6 meter per second, or you can go for back flushing. This also we have discussed during ultrafiltration. So, in back flush technique, the direction of the permeate flow through the membrane is periodically reversed. We have seen now how the back flushing is done from the feed side, then again you close the permeate trap, and from the back side again you back flush. Okay. So, by doing that, the entire area of the membrane will be back flushed. So, however, higher velocities are energy demanding and give problems with too high pressure losses in the membrane modules. Back flushing also reduces the effective operation time and gives a loss of permeate to the feed solution. So, let us understand the control of fouling. Thus, this also we have discussed in our ultrafiltration, but let us just quickly go through. So, in industry, the most important thing is that the membrane should keep running at high flux for a longer period of time. So, it should be more technically sustainable, okay, as well as economically also sustainable. So, for the microfiltration process, this can only be achieved if the fouling can be controlled or minimized to a greater extent. The pre-treatment of the feed by flocculation and coagulation, sedimentation and centrifugation may be helpful to mitigate fouling. Now, please remember, as I told you in the beginning of the class, the fouling mechanism, the build up of concentration, polarization, all these things are little different in ultrafiltration and microfiltration. The reason that their pore sizes are different, microfiltration pore sizes are bigger. In general, ultrafiltration the pore sizes is much smaller than the microfiltration. Then ultrafiltration is a asymmetric membrane, and microfiltration pores are more defined, well defined. Last class we have seen how the pores we have discussed about the screen filters and depth filters. So, if the shear forces on the membrane surface becomes greater, then the adhesive forces between the foulants and the membrane surface, the chance of fouling on the membrane surface becomes minimum. One way of increasing the shear forces is by introducing gas purge. This also we have discussed how gas purging can be done. Basically, you purge gas, nitrogen or even air depending upon what is the solute inside the feed is there. This purging will help create bubbles. So, you are basically creating a different types of multi-phase flow inside the module. It is a two-phase flow basically. So, this gas purge will increase the magnitude of shear forces on the membrane surface by generation of air bubbles. So, this will help in controlling fouling on the membrane surface to certain extent. So, how do you clean membrane? So, there are many methods proposed for cleaning the membrane: back flushing with deionized water, sonication, chemical based cleaning, and a combination of various cleaning methods can be adapted depending on the nature and the severity of the fouling. Now, back flushing for hollow fiber membranes. So, it is recommended that flushing with deionized water from the opposite side of the membrane at a pressure of 2.45 bar for 5 minutes. So, this is for the hollow fiber membranes, not true for all membranes. So, sonication can be performed by sonicating the membrane module in a sonication bath at a frequency of 42 kilohertz and a bath temperature of 20 degrees centigrade. So, these particular parameters, those are fixed, you are seeing na, this has been recommended by various researchers after using various types of solutes. Chemical cleaning involves the use of some cleaning chemicals into the lumen of the membrane and soaking the module for almost 12 to 15 hours. So, the sequence of chemical cleaning is that first alkali treatment, okay, followed by a brief rinse of the module with deionized water, then acid treatment. So, this is the sequence that is proposed and adapted by most of the industries. The alkali used is usually 1 molar of sodium hydroxide and 0.05% sodium hypochlorite solution, while 1 m's nitric acid was used for the acid treatment. So, the energy required for microfiltration is basically the energy that is required to pump fluids through and as well as pass the membrane. So, the ideal energy required to move a fluid through membrane microfiltration membrane is usually very negligible. Because the pore sizes are bigger, na, so you do not need much pressure to pressurize and to achieve the retention. So, at any operating pressure difference across the membrane of 5 psi in a dead end, usually 5 psi for a dead end filtration system. So, energy requirement is only 0.01 kilowatt hour per meter cube per permeate passing through the membrane. It is very small pressure. So, cross flow devices usually consumes little higher energy. Okay, because there is an additional cross flow pump is required for the recirculation. practical cross flow devices consume about 5 kilowatt hour per meter cube, essentially all of which is used to minimize polarization, increase rate and thus lower the membrane area requirement and capital cost. So, microfiltration running in dead end configuration consumes less energy. However, cross flow consumes more energy than competing when we are comparing with other non membrane processes like centrifugation, clarification, etc. So, let us quickly discuss some of the applications of microfiltration. There are many applications, just listed some of the most relevant applications industrial wise. So, separation of oil water emulsions, pretreatment of water for NF and RO, this is one of the most important applications. And then cell harvesting from bioreactors or fermenters. In dairy industries, we discussed last class also in ultrafiltration also that membrane technology has huge application in dairy industries. So, clarification of fruit juices and beverages, bacteria virus removal from water to be used in various process industries, industrial wastewater treatment and air filtration. We will see the dairy one. So, in dairy industry the milk protein fractionation or separation. So, whey and casein protein separation are newer and important processes used in dairy industries nowadays, because the large pores in the microfiltration membrane allow most of the whey protein to pass through the membrane and casein to be fractionated before the use of ultrafiltration to further concentrate and purify each protein product, so that it can go for the cheese production. So, that this technique for protein fractionation allows for more options to manufacture unique protein products. Then fat or microbial removal. So, microfiltration membranes can be used as the final fat and microbial removal stage in the production of milk in order to produce high quality WPC is whey protein concentrate and WPI is whey protein isolates. So, with largest pore size range, microfiltration is commonly used to extend the cell life of milk and produce high quality milk products. It is especially applicable for use of bacteria and spore removal when treatment options involving high temperature conditions are not suitable. Now, this process can be used as a pre-treatment step to pasteurization to ensure that the vegetative spores are completely removed. So, this is a schematic of the microfiltration for removal of microorganisms for skim milk. You can see the raw milk, anything that is suspended is usually removed here. Okay. Then some fat is also removed, and you are seeing that this is basically you are removing fat here. Okay. So, fat free milk or skim milk is going through a microfiltration where you remove any other bacteria or any other things are present, then you are coming again, it is coming back to the filtered milk. Okay. Here cream is also coming. So, these all are going to becoming the cheese milk, basically homogenization, then it is going for pasteurization, okay, cheese production or liquid milk packaging. So, let us discuss a case study that is proposed, this is given in the Cinder Filtration company. So, this is microfiltration for fat removal. So, the objective of this study was to examine the flux and fat removal capabilities of Cinder's FR microfiltration membrane, which is a PVDF 800 kilodalton membrane. So, how the experiment is carried out? So, Cinder's FR2540 spiral wood element module with a 4-6 mil feed spacer was tested in a feed stream of homogenized whole milk. Now, this element was tested at 15 psi with a feed flow rate of 8 GPM at 30 to 35 degrees centigrade. Permeate flux and fat concentration were tested with the fat analysis performed by Eurofins DQCI. This is actually a analytical this one method. So, table 1 shows the permeate flux measurements, while table 2 shows the fat concentration in the feed and permeate sample. So, you can see the flux is 61 GFD, the fat concentration in the feed it is 3.09, it has been reduced to less than 0.01. Okay. So, almost nil. So, conclusion is that the FR membrane was able to easily remove fat from the whole milk feed solution with fat rejection measuring above 99.5%. So, permeate flux was also adequate at 61 GFD. Microfiltration membrane highly suitable for this type of applications within the dairy industries. So, the next is another case study. So, microfiltration for casein concentration in the skimmed milk. So, what is the objective? Now, the objective of this study was to increase the fractionation efficiency and purity of the beta casein and milk derived whey protein isolate, as detailed in the patent issued to the UW Madison Center for Dairy Research by this Cinder filtration. The process utilized Cinder's FR microfiltration membrane to conduct two critical parts of the process starting from skim milk. So, the experiment goes something like this. All testing was performed at the Wisconsin Center for the Dairy Research using a Cinder FR8038 elements with 46 mil feed spacers, where 2 elements were operated in parallel. So, there are 2 elements are there or modules. So, the feed solution was comprised of pasteurized skim milk. The microfiltration elements were operated using 12 psi boost pressure at an operating temperature of less than 5 degree centigrade. For the initial fractionation step, retentats from each type of protein samples, which is beta casein as well as the MDWPI. MDWPI is the milk derived whey protein isolate, were subsequently spray dried and analyzed for total solids, protein and casein concentration. So, you can see the total solids it is 8.9%, true protein is 3.1%, casein is 2.5%. How they are getting concentrated? Beta casein is 83% and WPI is whey protein isolate is 11%. So, you can see the total solids here in MCC, this is MCC, okay, and this is your WPC, and this is total protein and this is casein, right. So, we can conclude that the results of this study indicate that the use of microfiltration in the processing of skim milk allows for the production of unique protein products. The ability to produce beta casein and whey protein isolate is useful for a wide variety of food and beverage applications. So, these are very new developments in dairy industries. The next application is wine and beer filtration. So, once we have discussed this long back. Okay, so, microfiltration can remove suspended solids and turbidity while allowing the passage of color, alcohol and taste. The permeate is the low turbidity, clear and flavorable wine and beer, okay, and the retentate is wine or beer along with suspended solids, colloidal haze particles. Microfiltration eliminates the need for diatomous earth filtration and all associated problems and reduces the use of enzymes for chill proofing and fining agents. Of special value is the ability to control microstability of the beer for extended periods. Since it is removing most of the components which may create a problem of stability, so then the stability is enhanced if you are going for a microfiltration of the wine and beer. So, then there is clinical applications also. So, cross flow microfiltration is used for the separation of blood cells from plasma. Now, this can be accomplished by employing controlled microfiltration where the blood cells are returned to the donor during the plasma collection process and the plasma is getting collected. So, this method is called plasmapheresis. So, plasmapheresis may be recommended for stabilizing a rapid decrease in muscle strength or reduction of moderate to severe muscle weakness before surgeries. So, the next most important application of microfiltration is of course industrial wastewater treatment. Even domestic or municipal wastewater treatment also it is being used. So, microfiltration remove all suspended solids and insoluble metal hydroxide solids from wastewater. So, it is useful in the treatment of wastewater from pulp and paper industry, textile wastewater industry, textile wastewater, tanning and leather industry and so on. There are other industries also, just few of them. So, you can see a photograph of the JWC environmental wastewater treatment plants here. So, as I told you earlier also, wastewater treatment is one of the most important application of microfiltration as well as ultrafiltration. So, with this today I conclude. Most of the materials were taken from Professor Nath's books. So, you can refer it. So, in the next lecture we will start a new module, module 9, under which we will solve some of the problems on reverse osmosis and microfiltration. Thank you very much. In case you have any query, please feel free to write to me at kmohanty@iitg.ac.in. Thank you.